Hey guys, hey, I want to share with you a thought about some things that are coming up. Obviously, this is an election season, but pastors, going back to the beginning, when John Adams was asked who's responsible for the ideas they had, he started listing pastors. He listed the Reverend Charles Johnson, he listed Jonathan Mayhew and Samuel Cooper and so many others. And as we own about 160,000 documents from American history, including thousands of those early sermons by those guys. And the pastors were the voice in every area and the voice of government. They were the voice of everything. And I think one of the things that's happened in America is we've become more biblically illiterate than we ever have. American Bible Society documents that this year we lost another 25 million Americans who no longer read the Bible at all. We're down to where only 9% of Christians read the Bible on a daily basis. Only 6% have a biblical worldview. So we're looking at a situation where we know less and less about the Bible. And that means we know less and less about God's institutions. And we know God's three institutions. God created the family, Genesis 1, 2, 3. That's his institution. God created the church. We know a great example of that is the book of Exodus, where he has the congregation and the people get together in the tabernacle. And so that's kind of the type and shadow of the church. But we really don't pay much attention to Genesis 9, where he creates civil government. He had no government prior to that. I mean, in Genesis 4, Cain kills Abel. And then everything goes downhill and God sends a flood. And after the flood, Noah gets off the ark. He said, okay, no, we're doing it different. And he gave him what are called the Noahide laws. That's the first 7 laws in the history of government anywhere in the world, either secular history or religious history. Noah, here's what you do to murderers. Here's what you do to thieves. It's civil government. That's where civil government started. That is God's institution. And throughout the Bible, we know that it's there. Now, Christians today are better about knowing about church and about family than they are about government. But when you go back to the founding of America, when we wrote the Declaration, even secular historians today have documented that the single most cited source in the writing of the Declaration was John Locke's 2 treatises of government. John Locke was a British theologian. He wrote that book in 1690, and that book on how government's supposed to operate references the Bible over 1,500 times. Richard Henry Lee, who made the motion that we should separate from Great Britain, he said, we quote, we copied the Declaration from Locke's 2 treatises. So there's a single book with more than 1,500 references on government, and most Christians today can't give you more than 2 or 3 references. And so we really have bailed out of that political arena, that government arena. We're not in it like we should be. So our challenge is we need to be 3/3 Christians. America's become 2/3 Christians. We're doing pretty good on family and church. We're not doing good on government, and that is God's institution. We should be stewards of that as well as the family and the church. And there's a challenge I'll give you that came from Benjamin Rush. Benjamin Rush, the signer of the Declaration, very evangelical. John Adams set out of 250 founding fathers. The 3 most notable were George Washington, Ben Franklin, and Benjamin Rush. Rush started the first abolition movement in America. He led the National Abolition Movement. He started the first Bible Society in America. He started the first Sunday school movement in America. He's an incredible guy. And he talks about that those 3 institutions. He said the purpose of public education, by the way, he's called the father of public schools under the Constitution. He said the purpose of public education, number 1, is to teach students to love and serve God. Number 2, he said the purpose of public education is to teach students to love and serve their country. And number 3, to teach students to love and serve their family. Now, he said God, country, family, which is an interesting order. Nearly every Christian I know would say it should be God, it should be family, it should be country, because family is so much more important. And he said way back in 1790, when he did this piece, that no, it should be God, it should be country, it should be family, because he said if you ever lose control of your country will become the great enemy of the family. And that's what we have certainly seen in the last few years with what's going on in the schools. That's the enemy of the family. If you didn't catch it, this last Monday, a week ago, Governor of California signed a new law that says if any child wants to transition and the parents won't let them transition to a different gender, the state will take that child from the parents and raise that child. We have in Washington State, the bill up there says, hey, we're creating health clinics on schools. Every school will have one. And they will be able to transition kids. They'll be able to give kids birth control. They'll be able to do abortions for minors, and we'll make sure parents don't know about it. We're seeing even that a teacher was fired this week because she refused to teach the students about gay marriage. And that's not the object of school. So we're finding that schools have become a real cesspool of the culture, but it's because we've not been involved in government. It should be God and then government and the family, because if you can protect the government, you can have the friend of the family, and now it's the enemy of the family. and we're on the outside looking in. And so we're seeing things happen. We saw 51 churches get involved in Dallas, and they took 15 out of 15 school board seats in Dallas. 25 out of 30 churches took in Miami-Dade County. Fort Worth churches took 20 out of 21 school board seats. 1,500 churches got involved in Colorado. They took Denver, Colorado Springs. They took 78 school boards. So we're seeing things start to change, and that's going to be there. But we're also coming up on election season, and we have a very polarized worldview available. And if we don't choose people that have a view that God's more important than government is, we're going to have more enemies of the family that happen out of this election. So that'd be my challenge: is we got to become 3/3 Christians again, not 2/3 Christians. We've got to get back involved in all of God's institutions. That involves the civil arena as well. And we're seeing what happens when Christians are not salt and light in that arena.